Emerging trends in talent acquisition. What's the next big thing? Let's take a look at today's emerging trends and the changing landscape we find ourselves in as we approach the next decade. Moderated by Adam Woodley, Betsson, Cordelia Morgan, Cooper, Catena Media, Liam Reese, Kindred, Thanos Marinos, Enterg Solutions.
Thank you. Okay, so we're here today to talk about emerging trends in talent acquisition. I'm Adam Woodley, Head of Recruitment for Betsson Group. Joining me today, we have Cordelia Morgan Cooper, Talent Acquisition Manager, Catena Media, Liam Reese, Head of HR Operations and Talent Acquisition at Kindred Group, and Thanos from Enterg Gaming Platform. Thank you. So I think we can all agree that there's been a huge change in talent acquisition over the past decade. And also, talent has changed also. For you guys, what would you say has been the biggest shift when it comes to talent acquisition?
I'm happy to go if you want.
Yeah, sure.
So I think for us, it's about visibility. So I think if we kind of look back, 5 or 10 years ago, you still had much more control of the story of your organisation. I think as you see Glassdoor and the continued consumerisation of culture of an organisation, it's much harder to spin that story. So I think we've had to work as an organisation really hard on making sure we're a great place to work and really kind of having advocates throughout the organisation who can take that to people we want to hire.
And I think that also ties in really well to employer branding within businesses. I think there's much more of a focus nowadays to have to be able to highlight what you're doing. And again, like you said, Liam, be able to show the world that you're a great employer as well.
Yeah. As a B2B provider and as someone that came in some cases in all parts of the world to set up new teams to run specific countries or specific segments of the market. What I've seen changing dramatically the last 5 years is the fact that you actually need specialized people. You cannot go just with hiring a marketing manager like you used to do 10 years ago. Now you need a digital marketing manager, you need a social media manager. You just need to expand and you need to make sure you attract the right talent. And in some cases, in some of the markets, you're not going to have a second chance. So you need to be pretty cautious on what you're doing and how you do it.
So for me, there's no secret recipe for success when it comes to acquiring talent. For me, it's about doing a lot of the non-sexy things, doing the basics, and making sure you consistently do everything at every point really well. I think the key word is consistency. Having said that, do you think there is one key element when it comes to talent acquisition that you can't get wrong? You just have to get right every time. Does anything stand out to you?
Selection. I mean, I think that making that final decision, that's the bit you can't back out of. So I think being sure that your pipeline's strong enough that you've got the right choices, but ultimately, being really firm about who does and probably more importantly, who doesn't come in through the front door.
And just on that, when it comes to selection, where do you think it's most important? The selection at the end of the process or selection at that very first point of contact? And how do the two differ in your opinion?
I mean,
to you, Liam.
I think, what we've always tried to do at Kindred is to really be from a talent acquisition perspective, is be the face of the business and make sure that sort of first contact is a conversation or a meeting, and we try and take ownership of that. Our responsibility is the culture of the organisation and protecting that. So yeah, we that first sort of screen is critically important, and I'm a firm believer that that's not a technological solution, that's a people solution, and clearly that final decision as, do we offer this person a job or not? That's got to be the most important moment.
And I think, the candidate journey is becoming more and more important. The process, as Adam mentioned, from kind of initially starting conversations with candidates all the way through to offer. But I think almost more importantly, it's when a candidate isn't successful, being able to feed back to them in a positive manner. And that's something that we really work on at Catena, to be an employer of choice, but also that if candidates aren't successful 1 year, then maybe 2 years later when they've got more experience, they'll want to come back to us.
Yeah. For me, it's paramount that whoever comes and works for me or for any organization that I'm leading, it has to be ethos.
Yeah.
If they don't have that, it's a non-go. Then you need to identify the skills they have and actually develop these skills. It's not just hiring someone that is good enough. He needs to come in and become better. And that's why, it's a normal course of action that you see people coming to your organization, and after 2, 3, 4 years, the normal thing to do is to go somewhere higher, somewhere bigger, to evolve.
Absolutely. And Cordelia, you mentioned a really good point, actually, about the rejection of candidates. And I think that's often not been viewed as part of the TA process. And I think what businesses are learning now, there's only a finite pool of talent. And if you're not cultivating your own talent, or if it obviously takes time to do that, that the people who you ultimately reject are your best or worst advocates in the market. And I think a lot of businesses are getting wiser to this now. So it's really good that you brought that up. Technology. So when most people talk about talent acquisition and how it's evolving, most people talk about the effects of technology and how to harness it. But again, and I'm glad that you mentioned it, Liam, that you still need that human element. So do you feel that will ever go away with the growth of technology in our space?
For me, no. I think sort of systems and technology are great for handling system and technology processes. So for speeding stuff up, for automating, for removing administration. But I still feel, a human being is the best equipment we have to assess another human being's motivations, emotions, skills, and that whole piece to understand, whether they're the right person. I think there's lots of technology that we can use to speed stuff up, make it quicker, make us more accurate, and to reach more people with messaging. But I can't see a point where you don't have a person who's quarterbacking that process for an organisation.
Yeah.
But I think also what's really fascinating is today, and in today's world, we can make offers to candidates and they can join the business before we've even physically met them. Skype interviews can be done globally. And I think it's fascinating that you can run a process without having ever sat kind of the way that we're sitting today with the candidate, to then bring them over from, say, Brazil, and then have them start, 3 months later within the business.
Do you ever do that? Because it is interesting, because it's amazing the amount of times I've met somebody over Skype, and then when you meet them face to face, it's almost like it's a different person. It can happen, good and bad. I've had poor Skype interviews where I've been 50-50, and then someone face to face, is really impressed, and the other way around. So it is interesting as well that you bring that up. So really keen to hear, while I've got you, what is your main talent acquisition challenge that you currently face?
I think it's probably around sort of scarce skills. I think it's how you, I've never worked for an organisation where there's pockets that are easy to hire, right? Because you always want to be hiring in the top percentile.
Planes landing this conference, that's probably the new one.
So you want to be hiring the best people that you can, right? That are available to you as an organisation. But I think we see for certain product areas, technology areas, kind of areas around user experience, that's a challenge. And I think Ivan mentioned earlier, I think we're seeing an increased issue around the reputation of gambling. I think we've done a lot around responsible gambling over the years and trying to position Kindred as a leader in that. But, increasingly, there is, especially in the UK, just purely negative connotations around gambling, and that is increasingly difficult to kind of get through as a message around what we're doing, and I think that is probably getting higher and higher up the agenda. So certainly, Ivan, wherever he is, I'd be very interested in having a chat about what we can do to support that later.
Do you see CSR as part of the recruitment funnel, the talent acquisition funnel? Do you see corporate social responsibility and responsible gaming as part of that? Because the reason why I bring that up is that I never used to. Yeah. We've recently launched a new CSR website, and it's by no means that's the main purpose, but I see the effect that it has on candidates who might not be as kind of clued into the industry. Yeah. As some of the other, more kind of seasoned people that we speak to. And particularly I see the younger sort of generations coming through from a talent perspective. It's massive. It's massive for them.
Yeah, I mean, I think when we have candidates applying to Catena, often we will hear that they've seen about our CSR initiatives from YouTube, Twitter, could be from anywhere really on LinkedIn, and that's something that they want to discuss or highlight that they found in their research of the business. So I think it definitely helps to raise your company profile, and I think that the younger generations, as you mentioned, they are more tuned into that, and I think that they are looking for businesses that support more ethical things.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so in terms of, so we mentioned the sort of the new wave of talent. How should we adapt our TA approach when it comes to this new generation? And how do we ensure that we can sort of tap into their psyche and bring them, draw them towards our business? And what kind of trends do you see coming about as a result of that?
So I think probably the most tangible, if we sort of say this sort of millennial generation, I hate to sort of stereotype, but I'm certainly not that millennial generation. But what I've seen and sort of feedback I've heard and what we've put into place is to try and be really quick. I think sort of I was always brought up in recruitment that we should, feedback, tell everybody a conversation, give them all of that feedback. And now people, my experience tells me that people are quite happy with a quick exit. They're happy with a text message to say this or to communicate with the organisation in different ways. We've had some really good success with putting a chatbot on the careers site, helping kind of navigate people in that way, so people can come communicate with you in a different way. And that layers all the way through feedback, the whole way through the funnel, that, changing the way we communicate to a more digitally savvy consumer is fine. And that feels to me slightly counterintuitive and a little bit against, what you were saying there, Cordelia, about, how we feed back. And what we've experienced is a positive message is a quick message. Yep. That as long if we're coming back and quickly responding, they're fine.
But I guess the important part with that is when's the right time to send, a WhatsApp or a text. Yep. To reject a candidate, I guess, wouldn't be the right time. But if it's more to schedule an interview in, then perhaps that's what kind of works for them.
Yeah.
Also, another factor, I believe, is that you need to make it interesting. As long as you have an interesting approach, and you're not just go by small boxes that the candidate feels that you going over a process. If you make this process more open and more interesting for the candidate, the millennials are looking for something engaging. They're not looking for something, okay, send us your CV and we're going to review it. That's not it. It's not going to work.
It's a very good point. And so I guess my next question would be, how do we cut through that noise? How do we get to the talent? It's a crowded marketplace. It's going to get even more crowded. What steps do you think businesses should be taking? And how can we ensure that you stand out from the crowd?
I guess by working on and developing your own individual company culture, that really helps to sell you as a business. And so when candidates come through the door, they're aware of what you as a business stand for and also what's important to you as a company. And then on the other side, you know how things will be when they start. So I think that's probably really important.
Yeah.
And I think this is an essential part of your brand. You need to review this as the best part of your brand. If a candidate is not appealing, doesn't find the brand appealing, he will never reach out.
Absolutely. And the brand isn't a static thing as well. You know, it's ever evolving, and everything you do, every touch point, every message you put out there, either, you know, adds to or detracts from your employer brand. Absolutely. So what is next? Where do you see talent acquisition going? Any predictions, any things that you guys are doing at the moment to try and stand out or to try and get an edge? Where do you see the future of talent acquisition?
I think the challenges will still be there. I mean, I think we're, you know, I think probably right now, I think it's about how we can retain and develop people into those roles which we know we're going to struggle, and how we can, you know, collectively, increasingly protect the reputation of gambling as an industry, so that it doesn't become, you know, something murky like tobacco where people won't want to work.
Absolutely. You mentioned, obviously, you know, we don't want to label sort of, you know, but there's different generations coming through. And I think one trend that I think we're going to see a lot of is this kind of gig economy, this gig culture, you know, and not having a job for life anymore. Do you see that having a big impact in terms of the future of talent acquisition and getting away from this sort of, you know, job for life mentality and being okay with it as a business?
We've been worried about that for years, and we haven't seen it play out. You know, it'd be interesting to see what happens with R35 in the UK and the impact that has on sort of career contractors. But I mean, it's something we're conscious of, but we haven't seen any major impact to that yet.
My findings actually are that, to your question, it all depends also geographically. I mean, it all has to do with where you're trying to attract talent. For instance, Africa is completely different, Asia is different, Europe is different. So, yes, it's changing, but I think each geographical part of this world has a different approach on this.
Geography plays a massive part, absolutely. Okay, well, I think we are pretty much out of time. Thanks a lot, and thanks for listening.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.